Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Brear, and welcome to episode 43 of the 11 Hours FinTech Insider Breakfast Show. In this show, we bring you the best and the brightest from around the fintech and banking landscape every single weekday, straight into your homes at 8:30 BST, here live on LinkedIn. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Claire Calmejane, who is the Chief Innovation Officer at SocGen. Do you know what? I was going to have an attempt then, Claire, at saying like Société Générale. Is that right? I never know
Yes,
whether
yes.
I never know whether I should or shouldn't pronounce the E at the end of it. But do you know what? I completely copped out. So my absolute bad there. We're going to be talking about everything that's happening in fintech and financial services in Europe and how the pandemic has been affecting SocGen. Thanks you so much. I mean, Claire, like you just said to us a second ago, it's literally a bank holiday in France, isn't it? So you're
It is.
joining us on your holiday day. So thank you so much for spending the time with us this morning. How's it going?
It's going very well. I mean, as much as we can in this very difficult time, obviously, and I'm delighted to be with you today.
Yeah, it's a very funny time, isn't it? I mean, how's the lockdown been in France? Because you were just saying a second ago the restrictions have started to be eased a little bit, haven't they?
Yes, so since 10 days, we are now allowed to go back to the new normal. And I was sharing with you, that obviously security measures for colleagues are the priority and keeping everyone safe. So it's been interesting. But, if we go back at the beginning of this pandemic, I remember the 12th of March being at the board and literally the Monday after, on the Friday, receiving information that basically it will be likely that we have a lockdown and that we have to prepare for everyone to be in remote. And over less than 2 weeks, we had to pass, obviously in SocGen, we are 140,000 colleagues in 61 countries. So
Wow.
not only France, but we were able to successfully switch 50,000 colleagues very quickly in 2 weeks, and it's continuing. And I think what's been very interesting, during the crisis is digital and innovation, which could, sometimes be thought as a side function, was actually really at the heart of everything we were doing. And for me, I felt it because I had to get up in the morning, at 7 o'clock, and
Mhm.
days were very long. But it was as much in a position, and we've seen digital adoption obviously going further. We were about 60% generally in retail banks in Russia, Czech Republic, France, Romania, and we expect that this have been now the pandemic, and especially seeing some trends on mobile adoption.
Yeah.
But also we've been looking proactively, especially in the setup of remote working, to take decisions that will last post the crisis. So we've made more effective basically decision making with some of our traders that are working from home, or some of our back office, so functions that usually have to come to the office to operate, where we've put robust processes in place that can
Mm.
last and be sustainable. And very
Yeah.
interestingly, we've also done some prospective work, especially in the field of CDBC and digital currency.
Mm.
Yesterday, Société Générale and the Banque de France have announced the first ever transaction that was settled in CDBC, so in central bank digital currency, showing over a 40 million emission bond that was directly that was emitted in the public blockchain, and
Mm.
then settled in the digital form of euro by the central bank, that it is possible. And that shows a trend a bit for the future as well.
Yeah,
So
no, it is amazing, isn't it? Like you say, the digital landscape has really stopped being optional, hasn't it, in this period? And like you say, things like remote working, it's amazing that you can sort of almost cut through lots of indecision that actually would have been there 10 years ago with things like remote working. And when it's suddenly really, really necessary, then these organizations can make huge things happen. I mean, how much do you think of that will, as you say, you've sort of put robust processes and technology in place to allow these things to happen. how much do you think of things like remote working will continue? Because I think it's sort of proved that big organizations can work distributed in this way, can't it?
Yeah, I mean, the bank have been fully functional over the period. We still had 80% of our branches in France opened, because obviously the nature of the pandemic is requiring that a lot of operation can only be done face to face, especially when you are a business and you need some of the special fund. It's never. I mean, yes, some of it can be operated digitally, but a lot of time you have to review your business case, your business model. So there is some back and forth and some anxiety in the process that also require a human intervention. So I think digital here can support more easily to have a video conference or exchange of documents in a secure manner, but cannot completely replace some of the human. And I think that's what will be good out of the crisis is basically in B2C. I think people will be much more clearer about what do they want to do online and what do they want to do with a human, so a banker, to be which will be more in the field of advisory, conversation, projects, and we will come a bit later to talk about what type of trends do we see out of this crisis? Because let's be honest, during the crisis, not a lot of people rushed online to say, okay, I'm going to open a bank account.
Yeah, they definitely had other things to focus on at that period of time, didn't they, for sure?
Exactly. But I think there is a big change which is there to stay, is obviously the long time coming of digital in corporates and commercial and SME, where, obviously with this crisis, unfortunately, everyone have to keep working and to keep doing business, adopt digital tools and digital usage. And that is going to change the relationship with these customers, where the B2C trends, I think, was already well ongoing. And, in Société Générale, we have the leading online bank, Boursorama. We have 2 million clients, and it's already doing credit and trading and different activities. And we know some customers, they're already ready for this type of models.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, that in these times, people have to sort of start to use the things that are really available to them. It's interesting. It's almost customer led, because they are now sort of seeing that they can do all of these things that they maybe used to go to a branch to do before. So it's good. I mean, digital has advanced so much. I mean, how have you found working from home personally? I've said on this show a few times, I really, really have enjoyed it and love being at home, but just coming to the same desk every morning is starting to bore me a little bit. So how have you found the working from home?
Yeah, I mean, you and I are a bit the same. I think we have to move, and we are innovators by nature. So connection and seeing people is key to nurture our brain and get ideas going. But I mean, I found it terrible. I have to say, I have a 3 years old and a 1 year old, and it was keeping me a bit insane. And I'm quite happy that the lockdown is a bit out of the way. Obviously, it was everyone is there to fight the crisis, and we all respected the confinement very well. But I have to say that being a mom, being a mom's boss, being at the heart of the strategic agenda with digital and innovation was quite tough. And I think it's all right for everyone to offload a bit. I'm delighted you enjoy it so much, but I think for me, sometimes I was a bit like, wow. I just have enough.
I was saying to you earlier on, it's almost becoming a standard feature of every meeting that I'm on right now, that somebody's kid walks into the background or somebody's kid will walk in. The thing that I'm really enjoying is actually, like, I mean, yesterday, saying to this to you a second ago, yesterday I had a meeting where the entire meeting stopped. It was a pretty senior people that we were talking to at a technology company. The whole meeting stopped to talk to the CTO's kid for like 6-7 minutes, and I really enjoy that. I think it's nice. It's almost it's very sort of humanizing, I think, for the kind of people that you're sort of dealing with to a certain degree. But yeah, no, definitely. I think when you're trying to be sort of stealthy and quiet, and you can hear that little hand knocking on the door, then you know you're into trouble, aren't you, if you don't deal with it? But so for everybody who doesn't know, Claire, like give a little bit of your background. I mean, you know, SocGen's definitely not the first bank that you've been in and really changing. Because you used to work over in London in Lloyds Banking Group, didn't you?
Yes, yes, definitely. So, I mean, I'm an IT engineer. I've been working, 7 years at Lloyd's, at the heart of one of the biggest digital transformation. And I think Lloyd's is definitely one of the textbook of a customer-led transformation. But I guess, and there was a lot to learn and a lot to bring over. SocGen is started their transformation differently because it started much more from an engineering point of view, which also culturally you can recognize French being in I will talk a little bit about that, but engineer, best in class, data and AI, and etc., and British being more in the business side of the transformation. And in SocGen, what I found is much more a pioneering spirit. And at the end of the day, what was super interesting is SocGen is on where there is no ambition to be a follower, there is only ambition to be a leader.
Fantastic. Well, that's very exciting. I mean, particularly in your role, right? Because that puts you very much in the the eye of the storm when it comes to making those things happen, right?
Sure. After, I have a global role reporting directly to the CEO, but obviously at this size, most of the work is operated directly in the business team. So where what we do is basically three different type of mission. One, to promote a customer strategy. So we will look around how to increase digital marketing, digital sales, and benchmarking with real data, not just qualitative and features, but really, going in the nitty gritty and bringing these best practices from one business to another. So what I was talking about Boursorama, or we have a car leasing business, ALD, which is the European leader, which is doing partnership with Amazon to distribute cars in Spain. And it's to observe also what is happening and to bring this best in other business units. So that's one part of the mission. The second one is obviously to bring digital at the heart of the operating model. So, for example, how do you put individual and collective incentive around digital and the right one? So not just features, but really, how does it bring you to a more customer-centric organization? You may have seen that since two trimester now, in our financial report, we are issuing also digital reporting. That's part of the role to work with the finance department and the CFOs to do that, to push AI, and we'll come back on that, at the heart of the operating model, and to promote an innovation culture. And the last part of the role is around new ventures. And here I was talking about the CDBC, but we also have, made the acquisition of Trezor about 15 months ago now, which is a bank as a service, providing most of the fintech. And here I operate directly ventures with the responsibility.
Wow.
It's in summary, it's a very collaborative role,
Mm.
which could not be done with all the business line and the people that are there. The magic of it is to align yourself to your North Star, but do
Yeah.
it together.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's always about teamwork there for sure, as you say. But that's huge. That's covering a lot of different bases, isn't it? And actually, all of the key trends that you need to really sort of make the internal culture, but also, as you say, sort of defining really where you want to get to. I mean, the Trezor product as well is really interesting. Bank as a service is really something that's coming to a front, isn't it? So you run as the executive chairman, don't you, for those guys? Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is? And obviously, as you say, with SocGen's involvement, then that's a good relationship, good investment for the future of what the infrastructure could look like for banking, right?
Yes, definitely. I mean, bank as a service is so two different strategy. Obviously, the SocGen strategy to provide different type of services as we progressively modularize some of our APIs to offer them, and somehow Trezor is a test bed for us to understand what this market look like and what does people want to consume, because it's a very emerging market, and as we are bankers, we like business case, robust market analysis, and etc. So it's to have Trezor, because I think if not, obviously BBVA is leading in this field, and they took quite early on these trends in their digital transformation. But let's say they did it about 7-10 years ago now, and it was fully part of their digital transformation. When you start in this market, so SocGen had this idea for 4-5 years. It was part of our Transform to Grow plan. But the reality is you're quickly catch up by digital marketing and basic digital sales, where your investment is going. And in the area where we are going to enter, unfortunately, post-pandemic, where everyone will look also where do you need to put the investment, it's really good to have Trezor to make sure this agenda keep pushing. What is exactly Trezor? It provides to French fintechs, most of the French fintechs. So, for example, Conto, which is a SME platform, Lydia, which you may have heard about as well, the peer-to-peer platform, Launcher, which have been renamed Swile recently, which offer a card to pay for your lunch, basically, which is a French specificity. Provide card, KYC, account management. So most of the services basically where you can very easily build your front end. So it's really purely bank as a service, and now quickly expanding in Spain and Italy with the support of SocGen. What makes unique in the SocGen acquisition is basically that now we are embedding it in the SocGen ecosystem in a good way. So we are not trying to have Trezor becoming red and black. Sorry, we are trying to make the best of the blue and the red and black. Obviously, working with a big bank, it's enabling to access some of the payment services, to make it more industrial, to access also a bigger suite of service, as simply in the different geography where we are present. I was mentioning Czech Republic, Romania, but to be able to expose credit service and different type of area. So only the beginning of the journey, but surely it's going to be a fantastic one.
Yeah, well, and providing that type of infrastructure, like you say, as an organization, it creates the ecosystem around you, doesn't it? Which competition in that market and learning from what some of those players are doing ultimately benefits sort of everybody in that ecosystem, doesn't it? I mean, how have you seen the difference then? So you say, I mean, London is a little bit more sort of in the business, and the sort of French ecosystem is a little bit more sort of engineering led. Do you see sort of major differences between those two ecosystems?
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of all, the UK ecosystem is much more developed and bigger when it comes to tech, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to come in France, because having been at the beginning of the UK ecosystem, I know that there is it's a fantastic moment to be there, and there is a lot that is shared between the different European ecosystem, and I think that the key, it's not a competition for talent. The reality is, at the moment, US ecosystem and Chinese ecosystem are growing very fast. And what is important is to build a very strong European ecosystem. And you know that at the heart of this crisis are questions around, digital sovereignty, data privacy, which need to find answer from digital European leaders. And that will come of course, from a large organization like us, but also from this vibrant tech ecosystem. So we need to continue to nurture that, to build bridges. And I feel, my experience from the UK was able to create some of these bridges, but it's always important to keep them pan-European. In terms of thematic and discipline, as you mentioned, of course, French is more in the field of AI, deep tech, and the French tech, and even is really supported by all the minister, by the president, by Bruno Le Maire, our finance minister, and to protect some of the startup and assets. There have been laws, especially around deep tech, to prevent foreign investment, to hold up some of the assets and IP that are built in Europe and in France. At the same time, we know that late stage funds clearly are, and it's a challenge that is common to all Europe, are generally more American, more Chinese. So one of the focus pre-crisis, but I hope it will continue, is obviously to create this late stage fund in Europe, in France, and we are seeing some of them emerging. And we are lucky in France that we had seen some fantastic operation recently in Back Market, which is a recycled platform, very green, very durable, to sell iPhones and all type of electronic material reconditioned. There was one other last week in data analytics, Mano, which is about providing some type of IKEA system when you don't want to do like task rabbits, basically. So it's definitely growing with 5 unicorns that have just in the past year, Dataiku as well. I mean, there are so many, but the end game is how do we build that from a European point of view, and I hope we will be part of this journey as well. I know.
Yeah, I mean, I know we had Rajesh Agrawal on earlier on this week, and I know with everything that the mayor and the mayor and Deval, if you're watching from London and Partners, I know there's lots of work being done to establish, like you say, we're a lot better all working together on these things. So the bridges between Paris and France and London and England, I think will really sort of build something I think really sort of strong there, hopefully, in terms of what's happening. But it sounds like such a vibrant ecosystem. It sounds like such a vibrant fintech and banking ecosystem in Paris. It's a lovely place to be as well. I know I've said to you before, I think me and my family went over to Paris at least once a year for about 20 years. So I know it very, very well. So hopefully we'll get the opportunity to meet over there at some point as well.
I'm looking forward to see you. Yes.
Sounds good. So I mean, it's interesting. You say about artificial intelligence and automation, and there's sort of new competitors kind of coming into the market. I mean, it seems like quite an interesting challenge sort of facing the banks right now, because it's really an opportunity and an issue, I guess. There's lots of new things to learn. There's lots of new technology coming through. But I know, I mean, from our conversations, you think the same that I do, which is, culture really is at the heart of so many of these things. So, I mean, how do you think that challenge is being faced into, not just in France, but sort of globally with banks right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a very, I think, challenging time. I mean, if we go back to a bit the reality, because in the show, obviously, we talk all about innovation, digital trends, and
unfortunately. But I'm sure she will be. We will be back very shortly with us. But I think it is a really interesting one because, like you say, I think the reality is banking, I mean, if you look at globally, if you look at the share prices, banking is in a difficult space right now. But we've sort of seen this story before a little bit with everything that happened in 2008. So I think the playbook of how to start to build back the capability that's required, as well as really helping the consumers that they need to. Obviously, this isn't just a banking crisis we're facing into, it's a global one. So being in a situation where they can really support organizations through this, being in a situation where they're sort of building their brand and building their relationship, as well as using this as a bit of a catalyst for actually being able to kind of move things forward, I think is really critical in these times. And many of the organizations that we talk to are really focusing on that. It's amazing what a bad situation can be used as a real cut through of that Gordian knot from a technology perspective to really sort of make things happen. But Claire, I think we've got you back now. I think you were just about to give us your view on actually how do you think, obviously banking is in a bit of a tough time right now, but where do you think it will go from here?
Yes, so I think it's very early, as I was mentioning, to fully understand the consequence of this crisis that is of unprecedented magnitude. Though everyone is on deck and all hands on deck, and you've seen that France and Germany are working to unlock the 500 billion fund to support the economy. I think there is a strong determination from European leaders to get there. In B2C, what we can expect early trends is to see a switch from customers to look at protection, retirement, and insurance type of product, thinking a little bit about what could happen if this come back again, or surfing on some trends around consequences of this sanitary crisis.
Mm.
B2B, I was mentioning, I think the adoption of digital will keep being unprecedented and driving some digital usage, and that will change the banking relationship for sure. Though, as I was mentioning, there are some operations when you are in this field that cannot be replaced fully by a digital or by a robot. So the reality is a senior banker will be required more than ever, especially in the next coming months. And that's already what we are seeing, that, at the end of the day, you want to be able to see the best, but you also want to consume differently your banking relationship, and be able to do it in distance like we are doing at the moment. So
Yeah.
I think that's the early trends we are seeing. And as I was mentioning, I also expect that there are some acceleration of the most disruptive business model. And that's at the heart of what we are looking. I was mentioning, the operation we did with Banque de France yesterday in digital currency. We know that, payment online transaction top up twice that it was last year. In France,
Wow.
we moved the bar from 30 euro to 50 euro
Mm.
because people basically didn't want it to touch sometime, wanted maximum of protection and
Mm.
safety as they can. And these trends, I think, are here to stay, because what we know is when these adoptions are there, so China is working very actively in their digital currency. In Africa, what we are seeing is a big push from government to mobile banking and e-money. I think there is no going back in this type of conversation transactions, and going back to the operation we did yesterday, which
Mm.
was a real test. So it was real to a real settlement, but you could imagine that unlocking some of the funds in emergency to support the economy that was done in France, in the UK, a bit everywhere locally. If you can do that digitally, this operation could be done much more quickly,
Mm.
seamlessly, and basically fueling the economy much more in a much more efficient way. So to be practical, this type of innovation will probably have a parallel run. So we are more in a 5-10 years horizon than next year what's going to happen. So that's a bit the reality of the scale and magnitude of this change. But I think the direction is set, and now more than ever is the time. The last thing is obviously seeing big giants like Amazon committing all their dividend next year to fight for the crisis represent as much an opportunity than a threat for incumbents and startups. So because they've already made stride in lending and areas. As I mentioned, we are working with them. Sometimes they are even our cloud providers. So it's a typical area of collaboration and competition. But it's also an area to watch. Obviously, out of the crisis, tech giants have never been better. And looking at the charts and their number, it's just super impressive.
Yeah, I mean it's a very interesting time, isn't it, on the competitor side? And as you say, it's we're in a situation where the competition is greater than ever. But exactly as you say, I think digital is no longer the future. It's very much the present, isn't it? And on that point, Claire, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave you because it's coming to the top of the hour, and I know everybody's got day jobs to go and get on with. But thank you so much for joining us on your bank holiday. Really, really appreciate it. Where can people learn a little bit more about you and all the great work that you're doing right now?
Really, they go in the SocGen website. There is a page about innovation. Everywhere is there. And I'd like just to thank you, David, but also to thank all my team and all the innovation team of SocGen, which are fantastic in this crisis and making it happen for customers and for our colleagues. So thank you to all.
Fantastic. I mean, I know your team will super appreciate that as well in terms of the thank you. So, and it sounds like they're absolutely killing it. So, well done with everything that you're doing. All right, guys, for tomorrow's show, I'm going to be joined by Irish Rugby Union legendary captain and now head of brand marketing at peer-to-peer finance platform Flender, Mr. Jamie Heaslip. That's going to be super interesting. I'm a massive believer in great team sports people making really good business people. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Jamie has to say in terms of the new endeavor that he's going. Apologies for a couple of the technical difficulties we had today. And also, don't forget that we have our very first Ask Us Anything live stream over on YouTube and LinkedIn this afternoon. So join me and Jason Bates to talk. It's going to be 2:30 today in the UK. And you have the opportunity to ask us anything. I mean, Jason at this stage has built, I think, about 7 different banks, and I have like a really nice beard. So like, you can ask us anything about anything you want to. All right, guys, that's all we have for you today. See you same place, same time. Stay safe. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.